Welcome to the second video for I Has a Food. We are making rainbow cookies today. What you will need is the six colors of the rainbow, not including indigo, of paste food coloring. You will need 1 to 3 ounces of cream cheese, a half cup of butter, a half cup of shortening, 2/3 cup of sugar, a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of vanilla extract or almond extract, 1 egg, and 2 cups of flour.
Once you have all of your ingredients together, you're going to put the first 3 ingredients into the bowl, which is the butter, the shortening, and the cream cheese. Next, you're going to take a wooden spoon and you're going to mix those 3 ingredients together until they're smooth. Make sure most of the ingredients don't get onto the side of the bowl, because if they do, then it'll just be a big mess. I don't really know how else to explain that. Yeah, so just try not to get it onto the side of the bowl as you mix. Just go till it's smooth, and when you're done mixing, scrape off the wooden spoon onto the side of the bowl, and just keep scraping until you believe the spoon is clean, and just tap it into the bowl like so. Next, you're going to add the last and final ingredients, which are the sugar, salt, the vanilla extract, the 1 egg, and the flour. So far, I just have 1 cup of flour in this mixing bowl, and right now I'm just doing 1 cup of flour so that I can mix it in little bits. Right here, I dump in the 2nd cup of flour. Once the 2nd cup of flour is dumped into the bowl, just keep mixing till it feels like dough, and be sure to spin the dough off of the blender so that it doesn't slow down the blender, so it doesn't clump up on the blender. Just keep the blender clean. That'd be the best way to go. Just keep mixing till there's no more powder at the bottom, and once you're done with that, spin the dough off of the blender. It should just land on the sides of the bowls. Next, form a dough ball and put it in the fridge or freezer for 15 to 20 minutes. Be sure that it is wrapped in parchment paper or plastic. Next, sprinkle the counter with some flour and roll out your dough into a large log. Now you're going to split it into 6 pieces. In this video, I only split it into 5, and you'll learn why in just a second. But you want to try to split it into 5 or 6 pieces. Be sure that each piece is bigger than the last. See, the dough ball closest to the camera will be the smallest, and the dough ball farthest away from the camera will be the largest. You'll learn why the balls have to be slightly larger than the last when we get to the food coloring. But just be sure that each ball is bigger than the last. Now, if at any point during the preparation of these dough balls it feels too sticky or just too hard to work with, wrap it up in plastic and put it in the freezer or the fridge for 15 to 20 minutes. Now right here, I'm rolling the dough into balls, just so I can be sure about the sizes of my dough balls. Here I'm ripping off some of the dough on the 3rd to put on the last, so that I can make the last one bigger. The last one needs to be pretty big if you want to make these rainbow cookies as best as possible. Be sure that you don't overwork the dough also. Once you're done rolling out your dough balls, then take some bowls. Here I would need 5, and put the balls into their own little bowl. Next, you're going to do the food coloring right here. The largest one you will dye red. If you had 6 pieces, then the next would be orange, next yellow, next green, and next purple. But as you've already learned, I have taken out the orange because I only have 5 dough balls, and I took out the orange because there's more of a copper color than orange. Now here are the colored dough balls, and I've chilled them in the fridge for 15 to 20 minutes to make sure that they're easy to work with. Next, you're going to roll out the violet dough ball into a small log. Be sure that the island is coated in flour so that it doesn't get too sticky, even though it has been chilled a little bit. Once you're done with the first log, set it aside. Then take some parchment paper and the next color of dough, the next biggest one, and roll it out flat but not too thin. You don't want this to be really thin. Here on the right side, you can see that it's kind of been ripped right now when I'm kind of pushing it over. It's kind of been ripped, so you got to be really careful. And you also need to make sure that the log is not too skinny or else it'll break like that. And also make sure that it's not too long for the dough that you rolled out. Make sure it fits perfectly inside the next color, like so. Push it up to the edge, to one of the edges of the next color, and kind of use the parchment paper to help you roll up the dough ball, kind of like sushi. I just used the parchment paper to help me for the first little bit of making the dough, and right here you can see that I'm kind of peeling it off the parchment paper. That's because it's a little bit too thin and it was a little bit too sticky. I should have left it in the fridge for a little bit longer, but once I've helped get the blue dough around the purple dough, just use your fingers, kind of like Play-Doh, but be really gentle. You don't want to tear this, and just roll it up until the entire purple log is covered with the blue. Then just roll the log off to the side of the parchment paper and kind of try to seal the blue over the purple. Now it's okay if the blue doesn't overlap with the purple, because you can just take the blue dough and stretch it over and just kind of pinch it to seal it up. Right here I noticed that my dough was getting really hard to work with and it was almost falling apart, so I put it in the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes. Once all the colors have been wrapped up, like you see here, you can cut it. After it's been chilled in the freezer, make sure it's the freezer, not the fridge, for about a half an hour. Now, as you see here, I probably should have chilled it longer because whenever I cut into the dough, it smushed, and instead of making a circle shape, it made an oval shape. On some ends, not all the colors could be there. Some colors could be missing, but once you get farther into the log, all the colors should appear. Now you're going to want to cut these into circle or oval shapes, about an inch, maybe a half inch apart. They do not spread very much. And you're going to want to make sure that the cookie sheet is covered with cooking spray oil or a silicone mat like I have here, or parchment paper, just whatever you have. And just cut them into the circle shapes and lay them onto the mat. You're going to want to set the oven for 14 minutes at 350 degrees. This is what it looked like after it came out. Some of the dough was a little bit too long, so that tie-dye cookie that you see in the middle is a mix of the stuff that came off of the end. Now this is what it looks like when you're done. The bottom should be lightly browned. It might not be browned at all, but it will be flat with some bubbles. And just remove them from the mat and put them onto the cookie sheet. If you use a silicone mat, you don't have to use a spatula. You can just use your hands. They're not too hot. They're really easy to handle. They're just a little teeny bit crumbly around the edges, so they might make a couple of crumbs, as you can see on the mat. But that doesn't matter. That's what cookies do. Now, as you can see, some of my colors in the cookies are looking a little bit funny. Like, some of them are stretched into other colors, and some of them are smaller than the others. That's because my dough was too thin in some places, And also I didn't chill it enough, and so my fingers stuck to the dough and made wrinkly places. You should try as hard as you can to keep these cookies chilled while you're making these. This is the first time I've made these, so they don't look very good. Well, they look okay, they just don't look fantastic. If you want to see what these cookies were supposed to look like, go to Yo-Yo Max 12 and look up her Rainbow Cookies video. Yo-Yo Max 12 has much better rainbow cookies than I have. So, if you're confused at all about why these look so weird, just go ahead and check out her channel. She'll explain it a lot better than I have. Right here I'm just arranging the cookies so that they all fit onto the cooling rack. Like so. Now this is the middle of the cookies. Well, this is the middle of the tie-dye cookie, as you see right here. That's what it should look like if you make a tie-dye one. Now for the rest of the cookies, you should take a circle or oval, whatever shape you happen to make, and cut it right in the middle of the violet dot, like so. And it will make little rainbow-shaped cookies. That's what it looks like in the middle. That's what it should look like on top. If you're wondering why my fingers are weird colors, it's because of the food coloring. It can get a little bit messy. So just continue to cut all the cookies down the middle of the purple dot. Some of them, as you can see right here, are not going to look too fantastic. This will be a little bit messy. Make sure that these cookies are cool before you actually start to cut them, because if they're not cooled, then it might just crumble and you might just get a big pile of rainbow crumbs. And we do not want that. As you can see right here, this cookie kind of ripped as I was taking it off of the silicone mat. So if your cookie happens to have like a break in it or a rip, then you can try to squish it together, or you can just eat it. I mean, it's all going to end up in a stomach at some point, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but you do want them to look as pretty as you can get them to be, especially if you're giving them to other people. This should make up to 60 cookies. There should be a lot of cookies. I'm making these cookies with my friend in this video, and so she's going to take home half, and I will keep half. At the end, I will show some pictures of how these turned out, arranged on a plate. And here, this is a mess up. I accidentally poked this one with the end of the spatula, but the inside looks great. But I accidentally poked that one while it was still warm and fresh out of the oven with the spatula, so it made a little dent in it. So you've got to be really careful with these when they come right out of the oven. Here I'm just showing you what you should not do. Don't do a sawing motion on the cookies. It could make them crumble a lot more. Just go straight down and it should be just fine. These are the rest of the cookies that would not fit onto the cutting board while I filmed. So now I'm just going to cut these last few cookies. The one that I'm on right now, this greenish one, this is one from the end. It didn't have much yellow because the dough hadn't been rolled out far enough. So some of them might not have all of the colors, but either way they're going to taste good. These are not too sweet. They're kind of soft with a slight crunch, a slight cream cheese flavor. They're really delicious. So right here you can see the cookie at an angle. Yes, I did just eat that piece. I would say you could eat 2 or 3 of these and you'd be just fine. And now, here is a picture at an angle. There's the picture from the top. Here is one rainbow cookie, and then cut. And then these are all the cookies arranged on a plate. You can arrange them however you want. But, yeah. Give these a try.